But yeah, with that said, I say we get started. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So super excited to have all of you guys here. Welcome to today's webinar where we're going to be talking about redesigning the employee experience to fit the future of work. My name is Kalle. I have an awfully Swedish name, so don't think about that. And while I have been doing quite a lot of talking, I'm going to stay in the background from here on because we have two experts on the topic here with me today. And before I let them introduce themselves, I'm just going to give you guys a quick overview of today's agenda. So first off, we'll start talking about some predictions and trends that are going to shape the employee experience of the future. And we're going to dive into what we can learn from the customer experience when creating first-class employee experiences. And you know, as a marketer, for me, this is super interesting. I talk with Karin every day, where we try to see how we can exchange perspectives from the marketing and the people side of things and learn from each other. So really looking forward to that one. After that, we're going to dive into some steps you can take to begin evaluating the employee experience within your organization. And finally, we're going to go over some tips for how to modernize your candidate and employee experience with retention and growth in mind. So without further ado, let's get into the presentation. And the two stars here. I'm going to let you guys take it away. Maybe you want to start us off, Karin, and tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Kalle, for the lovely introduction. And hi, everyone. I'm super excited for this webinar. I've been waiting for this. And short about me, my name is Karin, as you can see. And yeah, to summarize it, I work with something I am very passionate about, and that is our people and our culture at Joblon. So that is short about me. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And we've been growing quite rapidly here at Joblon recently, which is really fun. And Karin has been a key player in that. So she has some really interesting perspectives to offer later on in today's discussion. And Alyx, do you want to say hi to the people?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone tuning in. I'm Alyx. I'm one of the people and culture partners at Hibob. So I'm usually based in London. Right now, I'm visiting our Amsterdam team, which is super fun. And I'm responsible for the people partner side of things, particularly for our Europe region. So we're almost 100 bobbers in Europe now, out of more than 400 globally. So I'm working with the people team here. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here with you all.
Yeah, cool. Bobbers, I love that.
Yeah.
Babylonia's here, so it's buying off different types of weird startup names or techniques, maybe. All right.
Yeah, and I guess this slide is my cue. So in case you haven't heard about Joblon, to tell a bit about us. So Joblon, we're modern and user-friendly hiring software. We help recruiters and hiring managers all around the world to create standout candidate experience and attractive employer brands. And we also love to talk about the future of work and talent acquisition overall in these type of forums. And as Kalle just mentioned, we've been growing a lot the latest period of time. So we've been growing our team, but of course our customers using Joblon is also growing rapidly. So I think we have a lot of insight, hopefully, when it comes to the employee experience and that perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a quick background to Bob as well.
Yes, I get to take a moment to tell you a little bit about what we're up to at Hibob. So Bob is a modern and forward-thinking people management platform. So we're designing a tool that's meeting the needs of modern mid-size and multinational businesses. Our tool is allowing the users to automate and scale their HR processes and help organizations to develop their people connect their teams and grow faster and stronger globally. So we're currently serving more than 1,800 customers from all over the world. Customers in every country, I think, by now. And they're all also growing modern mid-sized companies too.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the introductions there. And while we love talking about ourselves here, or I do anyways, we're going to talk about the employee experience today. And I just think we should get right into it. And the first question that we're going to talk about here is, in a world of work that is drastically changing, what has been your go-to strategy to ensure a great employee experience? What has your company done differently, to cope with everything that's going on in the world? Do you want to start us off, Alyx, with your perspective there?
Yeah, of course. I think for us, one of the things when everything changed 2 years ago, fortunately at Hibob, we've always been really global and working that way. So actually, I think the nature of that wasn't such a shock to the system, but obviously everything changing was huge, and having to adapt to being remote. I think pre-pandemic, we were pretty similar to most other organizations, like meeting all the time in the office, all of those kind of things. So moving through that was a shift, but something that we were, I think, almost prepared for in a way, in the way that we interact with each other. And long term, we've chosen to be fully hybrid. So we have employees in our city locations where we have offices who will work with a hybrid model, and loads of home-based people as well. So I think we've put a lot of investment into really understanding what that's going to look like for us, and how we need to build a model that's going to work for Hibob. Because we were designed to be global, I think that was always going to be the plan for Bob and Hibob, the company. But the pandemic really accelerated how we did that, and where we now get to have employees all over the world. We have team all the way from LA to Sydney now. So we're looking at teams all over the place with all kinds of time zones. So I think something in that was really big for us was making sure that we're always getting feedback from our employees about how things are going. Throughout the pandemic, we were quite heavy on checking in and getting feedback and seeing how things were going with everyone, just to make sure that we always had those touch points. And that's something I think we feed into a lot of our processes. And another thing we were doing that was, I think, really key for us was just communicating so much more. I think at the very beginning of the pandemic, we started off with all of our teams having daily stand-ups and checking in all the time. And over the last couple of years, we've adjusted what that looks like for us. But I think in a broader sense, that's been one of the biggest things, making sure that our teams know how we communicate with each other and when they do that and how often we communicate and how we connect all of the teams, especially for us as a growing business with so many new joiners. That's been really huge.
Yeah, I can imagine. And as you said, communication is really key there. I know that's something we've been working with as well here at Joblon. Maybe you want to fill in there, Karin, since you design much of it.
Yeah, I think I can really relate to everything you've been just mentioning, Alyx. And I think in a world that is drastically changing, I think the remote setup is here to stay. And just that you were mentioning, Joblon, we also had a very remote friendly culture even before the pandemic, so it was quite natural for us to just continue on that path and continue recruiting across the whole Europe. So now we also have employees spread out. We have employees in different countries in Europe and also in Brazil, actually. And I think that for us, I think you've been touching on a lot of interesting points here, Alyx, already, but for us, it's not just allowing employees to work from home or not, but also how we as employer can create an environment where each of our colleagues or Joblonians can reach their full potential and thereby contribute to the company's journey in the best way. So if that means working from home or working from your summer place or wherever it can be, as long as you can do your work, of course, you should be able to do that. So I think the flexibility there is very important, at least for us at Joblon now, when we're gonna grow, that we continue on that path. And I think Sophia, one of our colleagues, working close with Kalle in the marketing team, I think she's a great example of this. She even calls herself a digital nomad. So Sophia travels around the world and it works perfectly for her. I'm different there. I love coming to the office. So what I want to say is that yeah, we're all different, and I think as an employer, it's important to adapt and be flexible. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Great insights on that first question. And I totally agree with what both of you guys said. It's been really interesting to see what's happened and changed just the last 2 years. And I'm really psyched to see what's going to happen in the near and long term future. But yeah, let's move on to the next topic here. What do the customer experience and the employee experience have in common? I know I am really interested in this question since I'm a marketer. We're talking about this all the time, Karin.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to start us off here and give me some inspiration, which I can use in my work when I get off this webinar.
Yeah, as you said, Kalle, you and I, we've been discussing this a lot. Spontaneously, what I would say about this question is that I think the customer experience and the employee experience, they should have a lot in common if you do it right. I think I can get a lot of inspiration and learn a lot looking at what Kalle does, and especially actually when it comes to the whole e-com perspective. I think today we're all sitting in the same boat. We need to do our best to attract and also retain the talents out there. And I think one mindset that I try to have when setting up the whole employee experience, looking at both the recruitment process as well as onboarding and everything that happens working at the company. I think you have a lot to gain if you have like a sales mindset, or if you look at the employee experience like a sales cycle that basically never ends. And just to compare with a strong consumer brand, I think Kalle and I have been discussing this a lot. If you look at, for example, like Nike, I'm pretty sure like if it weren't for Nike's strong brand, they wouldn't have sold as many shoes. And yeah, just a fun comparison, because if you look at the employee experience, I think, yeah, again, you have a lot to gain if you yeah, keep track of your brand. So make sure that, maybe sounds basic, but you know what to communicate to candidates. Make sure you know how you want to do it, and also that whole process. You never know when a candidate is going to see your brand for the first time, and I think that is what looking at the e-commerce, the whole key there is the consistency, to make sure that a candidate is not seeing your ad or something and then they jump into your career site and it looks totally different. Then you might risk losing that candidate just because it's not consistent. So yeah, I think that's my thoughts about that. And a final note, I guess there's a lot of companies calling in right now that have a great way of doing this. So we see a lot of companies at Joblon having great career page and ads, but we also see companies not thinking about this. We see career pages that are that do not have any identity, or job ads that are text-based, so there's no room for telling candidates about your company vision, or how it is working, their values, like those type of things that I think is crucial today. So yeah, that's the thoughts that Kalle and I we discuss every day. It feels like.
Yeah, but it's fun to talk about it, and you brought up some really fair points there. And I think the consistency part you mentioned is super important, and as well, I think people just want things to be easy. That's regardless if you're a candidate or an employee or a consumer trying to buy something. Whenever it's easy, we like it. So I think that's a good rule of thumb. How can we make it easy, and how can we make it consistent across our different communication channels? But yeah, this is some great examples you brought up there. I know, Alyx, you've been talking about how we can take inspiration from other business functions as well. Do you want to jump in and add something here maybe?
Yeah, definitely. I think I really love this mindset about looking at, like, in the HR function, employees in a business are the equivalent of our customer, right? And we need them to make all of our business functions actually work. So I love this perspective. And I think there's so much to be said for looking at the experience through the marketeer's eyes, like how we're actually gaining that attraction. And I think that carries on the whole way through the employee life cycle. I think we wouldn't create some amazing brand and then bring on a new customer and then do nothing else ever again. Like, it's exactly the same once we have that employee in our organization, and how we handle the employee experience beyond that. I actually think as well, to add to it, like we can think about our like offering as an employer, like a product department as well. I think if we're building a product, and like at Bob, we're taking our customer feedback and thinking about the problems that we're trying to solve, and creating a solution that's actually solving those problems. So I think we can look at the employee experience in the same way. Ronnie, our CEO, is always talking about this, like building a platform that's actually solving what our customers are facing. So looking at the employee side of that, I think as the employer, we want to be building a solution, so to say, that's actually what employees want to see, and supporting them in a way that they need for the future of work as well. So there's a lot to be said for like testing out things and tweaking them to make sure that it's actually fits the need of our business as well.
Yeah, super interesting. So do you mean like kind of productifying HR, if that's even a word? Maybe I just
exactly. Like if we're building something for our customers as part of our product, I don't think we would just create something without testing it out and see if it's really solving something. And we can do the exact same thing with initiatives that we roll out in our organization. If it's taking on feedback from our employees that they really want to see some benefit we have, or actually more flexibility now that we're hybrid, like how can we try that out and then tweak it to make sure that it's supporting the employees and serving the business really well at the same time.
Yeah, super interesting. I just got a visit in the room here. Someone is crouching behind me. It's okay, Pila. Don't worry.
Someone was
Sorry about that. But yeah, really good points. And this is so interesting. I think we're going to see a lot more of marketing and HR coming together in the future, because I think from my side, from the marketing side anyways, there have been two functions that haven't really, like, it has been hard to see synergies maybe, but in recent times, we've kind of discovered that, hey, we can actually learn so much from each other. And the things that have come up just in the past few years have been so interesting, with employer branding to, as you mentioned, Alyx, everything regarding the employee experience.
Mm-hmm.
If we dive into the next question, change up the topic a bit. What does modernizing the candidate and employee experience with retention and growth in mind mean to you? Karin, what do you say about this?
Yeah, I would first of all say, related to what we just talked about, I think to be able to scale your team and also retain talents, you need to make sure what you said, Kalle, that you treat the candidate like a customer. You need to make it easy for the candidate in each and every step of the process. So again, to just take an example with like a strong consumer brand, say if you're a candidate, you jump into the career page, you find a job that you think is very interesting, and then you apply for the job and you end up at an application form where you get stuck. You need to like answer thousands of screening questions. You need to sit down and write a personal letter. You know, all of that takes a lot of time. And again, you might risk losing that candidate because the market is very special right now when it comes to attracting talent. So I think you don't want to risk getting the candidate to get stuck there. And if you compare that with the consumer brand, it would be the same thing as asking a customer to spend 30 minutes in a checkout when buying a pair of shoes. Maybe it's a harsh comparison, but I think you understand what I want to say with it. So I think that's the first thing I would keep in mind when scaling your team, is to streamline your recruitment process. Make sure it's easy to apply, and make sure that even the application form can be an experience itself for the candidate. You can actually, of course, you can have screening question, but perhaps the screening question and the purpose with the screening question could be telling something about the company. Seen a lot of fun examples of that looking at our customers at Joblon. So I would say, yeah, that's one thing. And a second thing that I'm actually looking into myself now at Joblon, and that I see a lot of our customers doing, is creating a recommendation culture. And I was actually looking at some data that I was actually surprised to see that, for example, I read that candidates that comes from referrals, they are 25% more productive, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's also high retention. So I read that referrals stay 30% longer at the company, and time to hire is 55% faster. So I just have those three key KPIs on top of my head all the time, and I sit and look at how we at Joblon can create this recommendation culture, because I think when scaling your team, you have a lot to win if you create that type of culture in your recruitment. And yeah, a final thing, and this is where I think also it's fun to have this session with Hibob today, because I think this is where we cross paths, or the sweet spot between our two products is the pre-onboarding. I think that is a part that is easy to forget sometimes. You talk a lot about the recruitment process and the onboarding, but I think that the pre-onboarding, when a candidate is signed, the process doesn't stop there and then start with the onboarding. I think, again, talking about the employer brand, you need to make sure that you have like a process for that in between, because I think the pre-onboarding is crucial. It sets the whole foundation for your experience starting at a company, and you can also, I think, boost the candidates a lot and create more productivity if you have a good pre-onboarding. And it doesn't need to be maybe sounds big to, oh, should I spend time in not only creating an onboarding process, I also need to spend time in a pre-onboarding process. But I think a lot of customers have content for this already. It could be like creating a small welcoming landing page for the candidates, those small type of things that make the candidate feel welcome before they start.
Yeah, that's a great segue into Alyx and Hibob's point of view on this, which I'm really interested in. We've been talking a bit about this, Karin, but let's hear it from Alyx as well. Super interesting.
I think there's so many points, Karen, there that I can touch on, I hope I can capture each one of them as well. But yeah, I totally echo that and agree with it. Like when we're thinking about the experience, it's starting right from the moment that candidates are seeing your company for the first time and all the way through to the candidate experience, the pre-onboarding experience, what the actual onboarding program looks like. And through each of those processes, I think we want our employees to be as excited about the company that they're joining and feeling that they're set for success the whole way through. If you're getting an offer and taking on a new role, that's probably one of the most exciting parts when you say yes and you know you're joining. So I think I'm thinking about how we can keep that going the whole way through, and even in that onboarding or the pre-onboarding phase, when maybe there's a bit of a gap between when all of that happens and when someone is actually joining. I think a real key way to be doing that is to have touch points throughout that process, so that we're like keeping in contact with them and keep letting them know what's going on in the company or things coming up, and helping them feel really prepared. And I think there's quite a lot to be said in this. Karen, we were talking about this before, weren't we? That actually looking forward to how we keep looking at the employee experience as we hopefully come out of the pandemic. Actually, there's so many employees now taking on new roles who are still onboarding remotely for the first time or hybrid for the first time. So actually, loads of those things that we've had to adapt to over the last few years and months are still really relevant. And actually, it might be the first time now that someone is going through that process. So modernizing that in this sense for the question is, I think, making sure that we're really staying on top of that. Actually, it might be the first time someone is going through this, and that they don't really know what to expect when we're communicating with them at these touch points, like before they get here, before they join the company. And then once they actually join, what does their onboarding look like? Is it setting them up for success? Is it like, are we building out an onboarding program that really embeds people into the company mission, the values, the plans for the organization, who the relevant people are that they should be meeting when they first start, so that actually from those first few months, they're really set up to be able to do well in whatever it is that they're doing. I think that plays a massive part into what their experience looks like long term as well.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any good or interesting examples of this that you've seen around, like different companies do? You, speaking of these touch points, like what could they be, like an email cadence that you send out every week, or subscribe them to a sort of welcome newsletter kind of thing, or yeah, anything? I'm just making stuff up right now, but do you have any good examples of what this could be?
Definitely. I think sometimes it can even be just the things that maybe feel really trivial, like letting candidates know once they have an offer and a contract in their hands, like what's the next step from here? When are you next going to be reaching out to them? Are you sending them something to their home before they join? Like, do you have company swag? I think swag is one of the things that goes down best with bobbers. Bobbers love swag. It's fun, and I think it's a nice way to welcome people. Like if it's something that you're able to do, it works really, really well. But yeah, definitely and whether that's something that you're doing through, like can do through a tool, or if it's just something that you're doing manually. I think not underestimating those touch points go a really long way, and creating like certainty for people. I think one of the things that I've seen as we've onboarded people is just not knowing what comes next can be quite challenging. And when it's something that we can't control, doing all of those little touch points in between, so letting people know like this is what's going to happen next, or we'll be reaching out to you with this, or keep an eye out for that. And if you can automate it, if you're growing and that's something you need to automate, then that's even better. But yeah, I would say I think these are some of the main things that work well, and candidates appreciate that and they remember it as they're onboarding as well.
Yeah, great examples. And as you said, as long as you can start with something small, but as long as you do it with good intent and like care, the newcomers and employees are definitely going to notice that.
Yeah.
And kind of, I'm interested in the way to evaluate this. Like, is it through surveys, like one-on-one feedback once they've started? Like, what did you think of your pre-onboarding experience? How do you measure what's working and what's not? Do you have any good insights there you want to share?
Yeah, I like at Joblon right now, we try to follow up on this basically with sending out just two surveys to the new employees. So first, like a check-in, just first 5-6 days to make sure like you have everything you need, and then a more proper onboarding survey to evaluate, because of course, like again on the theme growth, I think looking at our onboarding process, that is something that we will need to adapt. I think we have a good structure now, but yeah, I think looking 1 year ahead, I think definitely, and hopefully with the feedback from this onboarding survey, it will look quite different actually. So yeah, I think we continuously need to evaluate that and update it as we grow.
Yeah,
I think those check-ins are really important as well when you do capture that information. I think there's now when we're, Karen, it was like you were saying as well, particularly right now when we're recruiting and looking at what our employees' journey looks like once they actually join the company, and actually their overall experience. A lot of it's based on expectation, isn't it? Like what was communicated with them, or what was their expectation before they were joining, and is what's happening when they're at the organization matching that. So capturing that feedback is such a good way to see if that's what's happening. I think candidates now are so hyper aware of how businesses are, how they're choosing to operate now. Like, are you remote? Do you have the flexibility? Are you hybrid? How does that sit with me as a candidate? And then when I actually start my job and I start working, how does that match up? And so capturing that feedback is a really good way to understand, like, is that landing, and is that how you're experiencing what we want to be offering as well?
Yeah. And again, tying back to the customer experience, that's how we learn about our customers, right? We ask them what they think, we ask them for feedback, we watch how they consume our stuff, and there are some really good learnings in there. So yeah, definitely some good points on how to evaluate this for your organization. Diving into the next question, how do you best evaluate the candidate and employee experience to ensure high quality? We've been touching a bit about on this just recently with the surveys and feedback. I'm sure we can learn a ton from the marketing side here as well. Do you guys have any other like ideas on how we evaluate the candidate and employee experience? And do you have any experiences from your own work in how you do this? Alyx, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I feel now that we got carried away and touched on the next question already. Yeah. A massive way that we're doing this at Bob is through surveys and check-ins, like milestone check-ins. Right. So I guess in the earlier stages, we have check-ins around like 30 days, 90 days, like employee anniversaries, so that we're capturing feedback at different milestones throughout the life cycle. We're onboarding lots of new joiners every month now, so that's a really good way for us to be able to capture data in like real time, so we can see if something didn't work as well as we want it to. We can tweak and change as we go, and then on a bit of a bigger scale, we run our regular engagement surveys, and right now that's something that we're choosing to do quarterly. It gives us, it's regular enough that it's in real time, and it gives us plenty of time as well to actually dive into that information. So those are surveys that we're running for the whole company globally. In those, we ask questions around if the employees understand what it is that we're doing as a business, if they feel excited about that. We ask them questions about if they have everything they feel that they need to do their job. We ask them questions around their team and if they feel connected and if they feel like a sense of belonging in what they're doing. and about their manager as well. So always touching on kind of those themes that really stand out as well, so that we can dive into what that looks like per sites that we have, or departments, or specific teams even, so that we can really kind of dive in and see things that are working really well across the organization, and then the areas that we need to focus on. Yeah, I think that's one of the main ways for us.
Super interesting. And what happens if an answer or a group of answers aren't aligned with what you hope to see? Like, for example, if a team or someone has issues with a manager, or just aren't happy in the workplace, like, are there predefined things you're going to do there, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, so we work, I mean, really globally, but actually that gives us, I think we always see the surveys as like the starting point to widespread capture that information. And then actually that gives us so much feedback that we can then go and use and understand what's happening. So if there's maybe a problem area or something that we want to look to improve, we can dive into that and work really closely with the managers that impacts, or the teams that impacts, to actually then understand what's going on. So being able to capture that information a bit more widespread, and then get to do the human side of things and dive into it and have conversations about it. I think that's, yeah, good HR work.
Definitely. Connie, do you want to add your perspective on this question, even though we touched upon it briefly on the last slide?
Yeah, I realize now, I think I have a lot to follow up on and improve when it comes to like our like employee experience when it comes to that. But I think what we're doing pretty well at Joblon is perhaps more focus on the whole like recruitment process and that whole experience for the candidates, since I love actually looking at data when it comes to the recruitment process. And of course, there's a lot of different KPIs that you can follow up on there, but something I try to keep track of is for example, like time to hire for our processes. Always try to keep a close eye on that to make sure that a candidate doesn't need to spend too much time in the process. So I think it's a good KPI because it tells you how many days it takes for the candidate to actually run through the whole thing. So that's one example of things that I keep an eye on, and also something that we do at Joblon, again related to the recruitment process, and that we see a lot of our customers doing as well, is following up on like eNPS, again related to the customer journey, sending out the NPS question after a recruitment process. I think it gives you a lot of valuable information, and there's a lot of great tools out there that can help you with this. So you get the eNPS score, and you can get benchmarks and see how your company is, what your NPS score is compared to other ones, and also questionnaires on top of that, so you get feedback on the different stages in the process, and if there's things that you need to improve. So I think, yeah, I realize now when I talk, we've been focusing a lot on like the recruitment process and gaining feedback there, and also a final thing related to the recruitment process as well, I think, is not only asking candidates for feedback, but also I think, of course, if you're a large enterprise, you usually have a large talent acquisition team, or at least you're a team collaborating. And I think it's important also to be able to give and provide each other with feedback within the teams working with recruitment. So it's important to not forget about that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so it sounds like a good combination of technology to kind of gather data and insights and feedback, and then applying the human side, or however you want to put it, to actually do something with those insights so you can grow and improve in these areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that a fair summary?
That's a good sum.
Yeah, cool. And before I can't speak anymore. I lost my ability. Sorry. And before we move on to the next slide, I was just thinking I was gonna hijack the presentation for a second, because our one-on-ones, Karin, I think is a good example of also gathering this type of information and feedback from your employees. So at Joblon, we have weekly check-ins with your manager, but also monthly one-on-ones where the focus isn't as task related, but more on how are you feeling? How are you doing in life? How's life at work? What can we do to make you happy at work? And for me as an employee, that has been amazing and really important for how happy I am at Joblon. So that's also something you can do to just kind of improve those relationships with the employees. A tip from an amateur. Anyways, moving on. I think this is the second to last slide. So time to get really good with our answers here. They have been amazing, but we can step it up even more. And we're going to talk about what trends you will believe are going to shape the employee experience of tomorrow. Karin, what do you have in sight there for the future?
Yeah, since we have a lot of customers out there, I think we've been seeing a trend when it comes to finding tools for unbiased recruitment. I think one request that a lot of our customers is asking for when working with Joblon, for example, is being able to anonymize applications. So for the customer to be able to be unbiased, basically. So I think that's a very interesting and, of course, a very good trend that we see from our customers. And related to that, except for this anonymizing recruitments, we also see a lot of our customers using other unbiased tools, such as general mental ability tests, so logic reasoning tests, and also personality tests. And of course, that's also great to see, because looking at the recruitment process and what actually has like high validity when you recruit, it's not looking at years of experience or education. It's instead using the tools that we actually have out there today, which is logic reasoning tests, personality tests, and also structured interviews, for example. So I think it's really interesting to see that our customers is discussing these topics a lot with us, and also looking at the new generation now, Jen said that is soon stepping into more like managerial positions. I think this generation is more values driven than perhaps previous generations. Perhaps salary is not the most important thing. I think it's even more important to talk about things we've already been mentioning already, but values, and again, making sure that you communicate what are the values at the company, and also what are the behaviors behind your values. I think that's the most important thing, and that's something we're working on a lot at Joblon today, because of course you can have nice values hanging on the wall, but what does it actually means? Because values is created in the behaviors that you see in the company and your actions. So yeah, I think it will be interesting to see Jen said, like stepping in even more into the market, and I think values, talking about values and that part will be very important. And a final note on that topic, I think we will see a lot of companies that have more processes when it comes to recruiting based on values, making sure that you promote person based on values, and also even setting salaries based on values. That's a trend that I see a lot today, which is super interesting.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing your insights there, Karin. Do you want to continue, Alyx?
Yes, of course. I feel like we have so many trends between us. But I think I can echo one of the first things you were talking about in the unbiased recruitment, and how that I think in itself is something that like should be continuing throughout the employee life cycle as well in the DE&I space. I think something that we talk a lot about at Hibob as well is belonging, and I know this is I think a wider trend, but belonging, and it's probably also something that's more generational. I think a lot of the younger generations, we talk a lot about looking for like purpose and the value in what you're doing. Like that's how candidates are choosing jobs now, and why employees choose to stay in their company if they feel like they're contributing to something bigger. And belonging, I think, is a massive part of that as well. So if you feel like you're included and connected, and you feel at work that you're bringing value and are valued as an employee, that's something that's going to, I think, keep elevating over time. I think one of the other things when I was thinking about this question is really about how we choose to adapt from here on out. I think something that's going to be really big, and I've seen as well in other areas, is not looking back and thinking like, oh, pre-pandemic we used to do this, or this was so good pre-pandemic. That's not really where we're at anymore. We're at a point now, I think, where we have to be really intentional with that, and choosing to think, what do we want this to be like for the future, or what's happening now, what are the other trends that we're seeing, and how can we build something that works for our company as well, in whatever process that might be. And I think it's something for us all to be thinking about, how we can be really on top of adapting things and making changes where we need to. I think we've all had to do that so many times through the pandemic, like adapt at the last minute and make a change and make sure we communicate it, that actually we're used to doing it now, maybe by force a little bit because of the situation, but now we're at a point where we get to choose to do that as well. So I think that's probably something that will be big and shaping how we think about things for the future too.
Do you think that this shift and the past few years have been liberating for HR, as a whole group, or however you want to define it? Or you think it's hard to be creative looking forward, since you actually can design your organization pretty much however you want to? There aren't any holdbacks anymore, or the old holdbacks anyways. Do you think that HR has been liberated, or do you think it's hard to be creative looking ahead?
Oh, that's such a good question. I like that one. I think the last couple of years in like navigating how everyone has dealt with the pandemic, there was so many things where you had to choose to adapt. You didn't have much choice. Like at first, everyone had to go home. That was just the reality. So from that sense, that's, I think, challenging, but definitely, like you've said, liberating in a way, as we have more, like now we do have more flexibility to think, okay, that actually worked really well. Like, so we can choose to continue with that, or choose to adapt something slightly based on what it is we're looking for as a business. Like for Bob, for example, we've chosen that we want to be hybrid. So we have employees near our office locations that will always be hybrid. But actually, as a result of the pandemic, we also have more employees who are completely home-based. So now for us, that's balancing how we continue to operate in that way, because we know it works really, really well, and we've seen it, and our bobbers enjoy it, to have the flexibility. So how do we then just capture the best of both and make sure that hybrid bobbers have everything that they need to support that setup, and the home-based ones don't feel like that doesn't apply to them, that they're exactly, they're fully invested in as well, and that they have everything that they need to support a remote setup. So yeah, I think it definitely isn't plain sailing. It has many challenges, but you do get such an opportunity to think, does this work? Do we need to change it? Or what does that look like for the coming years as well?
Yeah, Great answer. Thank you for that. I see we have a question. We're going to save it for the end. I also noticed that we only have 9 minutes left, so we're going to move on to the next question. And we'll take all the questions in the end. If we don't have time to answer your question, we're going to reach out to you personally over email and make sure that you get all your questions answered. So keep them coming in the chat. This is the final question, and then we'll move on to some Q&A. But before that, what, according to you guys, are the 3 main roadblocks to a good employee experience? What should the priority investment be for a company looking to improve their employee experience? Karin, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, we've been touching on this a lot already. I think, again, related to what Alex just talked about and having a hybrid or remote culture, I think it's super important to not get stuck in a mindset where you see the company culture as something that is created only in the physical office, but instead look at what I just mentioned before, what type of behaviors you promote as an employer. So that's one thing that I think you should be aware of, and also related to what Alex talked about, that I think if it's possible to say, thanks to COVID, we got the opportunity to be a bit more creative and have a different mindset around how we work in the future of work. And I think also there's a lot of great tools out there that's been created these last couple of years. Of course, there's thousands of them, how you can interact with your colleagues instead of like meeting up at the coffee machine. For example, we use something that is called a donut at Joblon. It's like a Slack app, and it's pretty basic. It's just like an app that helps you connect with colleagues across teams. So you get that like spontaneous, coffee break feeling digitally instead of meeting up at the coffee machine. So I think, of course, that's just one of thousands examples out there, how you can create this, create and maintain your culture when working remote. So yeah, that's just one thing that pop up in my head, and also I'm thinking about the things that we do at Joblon that helps us manifest our culture. Kalle mentioned it a bit before. We talk a lot about like happiness at culture. How can we make sure everyone reach their full potential and are happy at work? And one thing we do is that we have something called happiness tax. So everything we sell, a small percentage goes into the happiness tax. And every Friday we have our weekly sessions, and everyone has the opportunity to pitch what we should do with this money. And it's always a fun session to see what people pitch. And as long as 50% votes yes, we have to do it. And it's been everything from like a lot of digital events, like gaming events, things like that, to I think our CEO pitched that we should have like an office robot or something like that. That was not voted yes for. But what I want to say with this is that it's for us, it's about like how we can penetrate this happiness culture into our everyday work life. So I would say that is one thing that it came to mind when talking about like roadblocks, to again not get stuck in the mindset that you need to be at the physical office to be able to maintain your culture.
Yeah. Cool, thank you. Do you want to share your 2 cents here, Alex?
Yeah, actually, I think mostly I'll echo what Karin is saying. Karin, I think we'll have to carry on so I can hear more about this initiative. It sounds like a fun idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think these 2 things maybe go really hand in hand. Like a roadblock is probably somewhere to put our focus on, really. And I think we mentioned a few times through this, like staying stuck in the mindset of how things used to be or how they were is, I don't think really helps us get anywhere. I think looking forward and enabling, and our role in that as the people function is to support the rest of our team to get through periods of change. So I think that's something that's really big. If we feel like we get a bit stuck and people are looking back, or like this isn't how it used to be, then it's really our role to help our team and our managers to get people through those periods of change as well. And I definitely echo everything you said about culture. It definitely shouldn't be just something that's in the office, because otherwise that's exclusive to people that can make it to an office, when that's not really the reality anymore. So I think investing in culture way beyond that is super important. Like how you're actually, as a business, interacting with each other. Like what do your day-to-day interactions look like? How do you treat each other as colleagues? What are your like go-to practices? Like how are you communicating with your business? Do you have regular ways of sharing information with your employees, a big scale, like through an all hands, or how is that followed up in your like small team conversations as well? So I think, yeah, that's definitely something that's really big, and making sure that people feel listened to. I think investing in that works really well. We take a lot of feedback from our employees, and they're really engaged in giving it to as well. I think to also have like an investment in the company, and share their voice, and we're at Hibob really open to taking that on and using it to shape how we do things. So I think that's something that works really well to invest in. And really one of the things I found, I think through this whole like period of time and looking forward, is really to just focus on communication, like keeping people up to date, keeping them in the loop. I think you can't really be over communicating at this time, especially when we're not all together. Like way back, we used to be together and could just share things in person. That's not really possible anymore when we have people all over the place. So communicating and like using different avenues for that at a company or team or site level, I think goes a really long way.
Yeah, great. You're so well timed. 1 minute to go. Excellent.
Yeah.
We do have a final slide here for questions. I noticed that we got one in the chat, so I think we should definitely do that one. And if any of you guys listening here have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll get back to you. You know, our hour is up. I know all of you guys are super busy, so thank you so much for being with us here today. We're gonna stay around for a few more minutes to get to the final question. And yeah, as I said, if there's anything you're wondering or want to talk more about, please reach out to us, and also add Karin and Alyx on LinkedIn, and get the talking going. We love talking about recruiting, HR, the employee experiences, so it's just fun. So yeah, massive thanks to everyone listening. And we got a question from Ayala here. What do you think about providing the employees information about their options and holdings via Hibob/other platform? And do you think that providing this sort of information could be considered part of the employee experience?
Mm-hmm. I think I guess Alyx, you have an idea how that works with Hibob. Just a short comment from like the Joblon perspective. I think looking at like the recruitment process, I think it's super important. Again, talking about like Jen said, and that whole generation, to be transparent. I think it's crucial today to have a salary program with options, and likewise that you can inform the candidate about in the process already. I see a lot of companies having super transparent models where you know exactly how the salary ranges look like. You also know how you set salaries along the way, again based on, for example, values instead of looking at number of years of experience. So I think that's something from the like recruitment part on the employee experience. I think you can give that information very early on. And then Alyx, I'm sure Hibob have a couple of tools for that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. I think there's, especially generationally, everyone is more expectant of the transparency, I think. So that's a pretty powerful tool that businesses can use now, whether it's salary or options, and making that available to employees, I think just adds a layer of trust and transparency that this is something we do as an organization. So yeah, and I think Bob is a good avenue for that as well.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I hope that answers your question, Ayala. And if you are wondering anything else, please reach out and we'll make sure to answer all your questions. Yeah, I can't see any other questions. We got one from the mysterious D. When will the recording be available? We have recorded this and we're gonna edit it somewhat, maybe so you don't have to listen to me talking for 10 minutes in the beginning, but it will be available tomorrow. Let's see here. Shana has a question. She's curious to know how you articulate the company values and decide what they are in order to get the candidates you're looking for.
Yeah, good question. We actually did that at Joblon a couple of weeks ago. If I hope I understood the question right now, like how we actually worked on how we define our values. We actually have 3 values at Joblon at the moment, and what we did was that we first of all had a workshop with team members discussing what does these values actually mean when it comes to behaviors. What behaviors do we need to improve also when growing as a company. So we had a 2-hour session really like digging deep down into that, and then we also followed up on a survey with more follow-up questions. So yeah, we sat down and really tried to define the values and the behaviors behind it, and based on that we will soon also have a salary program that will be based on the behaviors. So basically your salary will be based on how well you live the values of Joblon. So of course I can talk an hour about only that part, but I guess I'll keep that to a different session.
Yeah. I noticed I missed the Q&A entirely, so we actually have a few more questions there. Do you guys have time now, or should we take it over email?
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, I'm talking to you, calling Alyx to answer.
Yeah.
There are only 2 more. Yeah.
Yeah, we can take them.
Yeah, let's start with Sonam, because he reached out 15 minutes ago. I totally missed it. Sorry, Sonam. His question is, or their question is, for remote regions where we have fewer employees, how would you work towards being more inclusive and facilitating the highest employee experience? Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a nice question. I think one of the things that we, like from our experience at Hibob as well, having people in more remote locations, if it's like when it's a small number of them as well, I think it's really like impactful to be quite direct with them and ask them, like, what is it that they feel they need? Is there something that they feel is missing? If it's something that's new, I think employees really appreciate that as well. And actually, if there's something that comes out of that you build, they had an input into what that looks like. I think we found that as we started to have more employees across the globe, like being intentional about asking, what does that look like for you? And how can we be doing that better to be more inclusive of that as well? I think there's always things that are going to look slightly different if employees don't have the option to come together, or if you can have the option to bring them together occasionally as well. I think that's quite impactful. But yeah, I think collecting the feedback and being really, especially open if it's something that's new, I don't think there's anything wrong in saying like, this is something that's new for us and we want to make sure that we're doing it really well. So what does this look like for you as well?
Cool. Do you have anything to add there, Karin?
I think Alex, you summarized it really well. I think, every company looks different, and I think you need to, of course, work a lot with feedback and making sure you follow up with your employees to improve that experience. So yeah, I could just agree what you just mentioning. Yeah.
Awesome. We have one final question from Anna here. It's for you, Alex. How does Hibob manage the hybrid versus remote situation? For example, how do you make sure that communication flows? How do you guys manage the onboarding for hybrid versus remote people? Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I could really talk for ages about this. There's so much in that. I will try to condense. So we have a hybrid model. So we took a bunch of feedback from employees at all of our locations back when we were building it. And we have now like a global baseline of employees that are fully hybrid, working from the office, usually 2 days a week. So we prioritize them having 1 day with their team. So they have the certainty of knowing that their teammates are there and people that they want to connect with, so that we can really invest in that. And then the other day is left flexible so that everyone can work that around their schedule, how many Zoom calls they have. We're totally global and all of our teams are working globally. So we're not getting away from Zoom calls anytime soon. So being able to navigate that, I think, is important to keep the flexibility. And one of the main things that as we were building that out, I think some of the main things that we were looking at was making sure that we have the flexibility and that people can feel autonomous over that they can see what their week looks like and decide when they're working from home or not. But that also, for people that really want the office environment, they want people around them, they want to connect, that we create a bit of certainty and routine around that as well. And it means we can celebrate both of them. So I think that's our like baseline, and people at the moment, as things change, we're also changing it, pretty like being flexible and changing it where we need to. But that's ideally where we want to be at the moment. And then on the onboarding side, as we build our onboarding, we really look at all of the things. I think we started off looking at everything we do in person and how can we change it to be remote. And then over time, we tweak that as well. So we make things available through our tasks in Bob, so that when new joiners start, they have all the resources that they need through our task lists. And then we aim to make things available and automate things where we can, so that then we can spend time on some of the more human things, like making sure that they're plugged in and meeting everyone that they need to meet to be able to do their role, and connecting with people at an office if that's an option for them, or how can we maybe mimic those with Donut, or with like sessions where they can meet people as well.
So you use Donut as well? Great.
Oh, I do use Donut. Yeah, so things like that too, where we can, I think there's been lots of things through the onboarding where we can look at something and say, actually we can kind of copy what that would look like in person and just do it over Zoom. And then there's other things that we have looked at and thought we need to adapt what that looks like, or scale that, because we have lots of new joiners coming. So how can we group things together as well and make that a nice experience for people? Hopefully that covers, and it wasn't rambling too long. But if you sent this question and I can help some more, let me know.
That was great. Thank you. Yeah, we covered all the questions. And as I said just a few minutes ago, if any of you guys want to continue talking about this, feel free to reach out and we'll have a chat. But with that said, I think it's time to wrap up and say goodbye for today. Thank you so much for listening in. This has been amazing. And we'll reach out to all of you guys in just a short while. I think tomorrow with the recording and just a summary of today's webinar. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.